Two tropical systems developing across northern Australia, one rapidly intensifying off the Queensland coast, another low forming in the Coral Sea. Widespread impacts likely across the eastern states over the next week. That's the situation we're dealing with. I've been examining the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, and there is quite a bit to unpack here. We're retracking Tropical Cyclone Launa, which has been developing faster than expected, plus a secondary low that S just starting to organise itself east of the Queensland coast. Both systems have the potential to bring significant weather to large parts of eastern Australia. Let me start with where we are right now, because conditions across the country are already setting the stage for what is coming. Up in far north Queensland, around Cairns and north to the Cape, it is warm and humid as you'd expect this time of year. Mount Carbine recorded 28 degrees at 10:30 this morning with 90% humidity. That is fairly typical for the build-up to the monsoon season. Some areas saw overnight minimums that barely dropped below 27 degrees. Uncomfortable sleeping weather, but nothing unusual for January in the tropics. Compare that to central New South Wales. Carcoar, up on the hill west of Sydney, hit 27 degrees before lunchtime with a forecast top of 32. They're re-expecting a low of 13 overnight, though more likely high teens without a decent breeze. Bone dry conditions out there. That's the contrast we're re-working with. Humid tropics up north, hot and dry inland. Brisbane and southeast Queensland have been copping warm, sticky conditions all week. Not extreme heat, but that persistent humidity that makes everything feel worse than the actual temperature suggests. Coomera and surrounding areas are dealing with similar conditions. Now, about these tropical systems, Tropical Cyclone Launa is the one demanding immediate attention. As of the latest update from the Bureau, Launa is sitting roughly 800 kilometres northeast of Cairns, tracking west-southwest. Current intensity is Category 1, with sustained winds around 90 kilometres per hour and gusts to 120. Here's what has got my attention: the development speed. 24 hours ago, this was barely a tropical low. Now at SA named Cyclone, and the models are suggesting further intensification. The environment is favourable. Sea surface temperatures are sitting at 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. That S fuel for a tropical system. Low wind shear across the region means there is nothing to tear the system apart as it develops. The Access model, the Bureau S main forecasting tool, has Launa reaching Category 2, possibly Category 3 within 48 hours. The European model agrees on intensification, but differs slightly on track. The GFS is showing a similar pattern. When multiple models align like this, you pay attention. Current forecast track has Launa continuing west-southwest through the weekend, then potentially curving more southward early next week. That southward turn is critical. If it happens earlier, we're looking at a more direct impact on the far north Queensland coast. If it happens later, the system might track further south, affecting areas that Don-T normally deal with direct cyclone impacts. The Bureau S official forecast cone as of 6 p.m. Eastern shows possible landfall anywhere from Cooktown south to about Townsville. That's a wide area of uncertainty, and it's important to understand why. We're still 3 to 4 days out from potential landfall. At this range, small changes in steering currents can shift the track significantly. 100 kilometres difference in landfall location means completely different impacts for coastal communities. For those in far north Queensland, you know the drill. Cyclone season is part of life up there, but this one is developing quickly, so it is worth staying on top of the updates. The Bureau will be issuing regular warnings. Monitor those closely. Now, the second system, this 1S, less developed but potentially more complicated. There is a tropical low organising itself in the Coral Sea, roughly 1,000 kilometres east of Brisbane. It's not a cyclone yet, just an area of low pressure with some thunderstorm activity, but the conditions are right for development. What makes this one interesting is the potential interaction with Launa. If Launa moves west and this second low strengthens, we could see what S called the Fujiwara effect. That S where two tropical systems orbit around each other. It makes forecasting tracks extremely difficult. The Bureau is watching this closely, as are the international forecasting centres. Even if this second low doesn't develop into a cyclone, it's going to pump moisture into eastern Queensland and northern New South Wales. That means rain, potentially heavy rain. Areas that have been dry for weeks are likely to see significant totals. Let me break down the regional impacts, because this affects more than just the tropics. Far north Queensland, from Cooktown to Cairns and inland to the Tablelands, you are in the primary watch zone for Cyclone Launa. Current thinking has the system approaching the coast late Sunday into Monday. If it maintains strength, you are looking at destructive winds, very heavy rainfall, and dangerous storm surge along exposed coastlines. Specific preparations: secure loose items around your property. Stock up on essentials now before everyone else has the same idea. Fuel, batteries, non-perishable food, water. If you're in a low-lying coastal area, know your evacuation route. Caravan parks in exposed locations should be relocating to solid structures. The rainfall potential is significant. Models are showing totals of 200 to 400 millimetres, possibly higher in areas that cop repeated bans. The Atherton tablelands and ranges could see extreme totals if the system slows down. That S flash flooding risk, river flooding risk, the Barron, Mulgrave, Russell, Johnstone rivers will all respond quickly to heavy rain. One thing I've noticed in the comments, there's recognition that you copped some relief from recent rain and storms. That is actually a concern for this event. Saturated catchments mean less capacity to absorb new rainfall. The ground S already wet. Additional heavy rain goes straight into runoff. North Queensland, Townsville, south to Mackay. You are in the watch zone, but not the immediate danger zone yet. Track uncertainty means you could still see direct impacts, or you might just cop the outer rain bands. Either way, prepare as if you are in the firing line. Better to be ready and not need it than the other way around. Heavy rain is likely regardless of the exact track. Coastal areas could see 100 to 200 millimetres. That is enough to cause local flooding, especially in urban areas with poor drainage. Central Queensland, Rockhampton and Gladstone area, you are likely to stay south of the main impacts from Launa, but that second tropical low might be your bigger concern. As it develops and potentially tracks southwest, you could see heavy rain midweek. It's too early for specific numbers, but keep an eye on the forecast. Southeast Queensland, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. The direct cyclone threat is low. Launa forecast track keeps it well to your north, but you are not getting away clean. That second low, plus the overall tropical moisture, means rain, possibly heavy rain. Current thinking is widespread falls of 50 to 100 millimetres across Wednesday and Thursday, possibly extending into Friday. For Brisbane and surrounding areas, that welcome rain for some, but it has been dry. The catchments need it. However, if we get intense rates, there is always the flash flooding risk in urban areas. Northern New South Wales, you're on the southern fringe of the tropical moisture. Rain likely, but totals decreasing as you head south. Newcastle might see 30 to 50 millimetres. Sydney could see some showers, but the main action stays north. Now, I want to talk about what this means for the Australian Open. I saw the comment about being glad we were not looking at 41 degrees for the tennis. You are right to be relieved. This tropical activity is actually going to knock temperatures down across eastern Australia. The cloud cover, the rainfall, the change in air mass, all of it means cooler conditions. Melbourne should stay comfortable for the tournament. Small mercies. Let me address the broader pattern because this isn't happening in isolation. We've got an El Niño pattern developing in the Pacific. That typically means drier conditions for eastern Australia and fewer cyclones. But fewer doesn't mean none. When cyclones do form during El Niño years, they can still be significant. Launa SA reminder that seasonal outlooks are probabilities, not guarantees. The monsoon trough is active across northern Australia. That is the breeding ground for tropical lows and cyclones. We're in the peak of cyclone season, January through March. The water temperatures are at their warmest. The atmospheric conditions are conducive. We dodge some systems, but others develop and track our way. That is the nature of living in the tropics. I've seen the comment from south of Cairns talking about how the tropical far north will actually be cooler than southern areas in the coming week. That is spot on. When you get cloud cover and rain from these systems, daytime temperatures drop. Might be 28 or 29 instead of 35. Humidity stays high, but you avoid that desert heat. It's an interesting point that gets overlooked. The tropics aren't always the hottest part of the country. Right now, inland areas are copping worse heat than the coast. One viewer mentioned surprising gusts in the rain at Cairns. That is those embedded thunderstorms in the monsoon flow. Even without a cyclone, you get strong wind gusts when a storm cell moves through. It's worth remembering that tropical weather isn't just about named cyclones. The background monsoon activity brings its own challenges. Let us talk timing in more detail because that is what you need for planning. Friday, Launa continues to intensify over open water. Far north Queensland starts to see increasing cloud, possible showers on the exposed coast. Seas building. If you're re-heading out on the water, check the marine warnings. Winds offshore will be reaching gale force by Friday evening. Saturday, Cloud increases across far north Queensland. Rain developing, initially light, becoming heavier through the day. Winds picking up, especially on the coast. This is your last day for major preparations. Secure property, finalise supplies, make decisions about staying or leaving vulnerable areas. Sunday, the main event for far north Queensland. If the current track holds, Launa approaches the coast during the day or evening. Destructive winds developing about the centre. Very heavy rainfall spreading across the region. Seas very rough to phenomenal. Dangerous storm surge possible in areas south of where the cyclone crosses. This is hunker down time. Don't to be out on the roads. Don't to go sightseeing. Stay inside. Stay safe. Monday, Launa crosses the coast. Most likely scenario. Winds gradually ease as the system moves inland, but heavy rain continues. Flooding develops in rivers and creeks. The focus shifts from wind to water. The Atherton tablelands inland areas that where extreme rainfall totals could occur if the system stalls. Tuesday to Thursday, the remnants of Launa plus moisture from that second tropical low spread rain across Queensland and potentially into northern New South Wales. This is when Southeast Queensland sees the heaviest falls. It is also when we'll know more about whether that second low develops into something more significant. Now, confidence levels. Let me be straight with you about what we know and what we done to. High confidence. Cyclone Launa will continue to intensify. A tropical system is going to impact far north Queensland this weekend. Heavy rain will spread south across Queensland next week. Medium confidence, the exact track of Launa. The intensity at landfall, whether the second low develops into a cyclone. Specific rainfall totals for any given location. Low confidence, precise landfall location, more than 48 hours out. Exactly how far south the impacts will extend. Whether we'll see any interaction between the two systems. The Bureau of Meteorology will update forecasts every 6 hours. Track forecasts will become more accurate as we get closer to landfall. Wind and rain warnings will be issued as needed. Monitor their website. It's the official source. Social media can spread outdated information or speculation. Go with the Bureau for those asking about Brisbane's spring storm season in October and November. That's a separate pattern. That usually about the clash between warm tropical air and cooler southern air masses, severe thunderstorms, hail, damaging winds. We're in a different phase now. This is pure tropical activity, monsoon-driven, different beast entirely, though both can produce heavy rain and strong winds. Practical advice for different regions. Far north Queensland, this is cyclone preparation. You've done this before. Don't be complacent because you've been through it. Every cyclone is different. Check your emergency kit. Water, food, medications, torch, radio, batteries, phone charger. Fill your car with fuel. Secure or bring inside anything that could become a projectile in strong winds. Patio furniture, trampolines, bins, tools. Know where your important documents are. Clear gutters and drains. If you are in a low-lying area and evacuation orders are issued, leave. Don't wait until the last minute. North Queensland. Prepare as if you're going to be affected. Monitor warnings. Heavy rain is likely even if the cyclone stays north. Be ready for power outages. Have supplies on hand. Check on neighbours, especially elderly people who might need help with preparations. Central and Southeast Queensland. Stock up on essentials before the rain arrives. Once it starts, flooding can cut roads quickly. If you're in a flood-prone area, move vehicles to higher ground. Never drive through floodwater. If it is flooded, forget it. That's not just a slogan, it's life-saving advice. Floodwater is deeper, faster, and more dangerous than it looks. Cars float. Roads wash away. People die every year ignoring this warning. Northern New South Wales, keep an eye on forecasts. You are on the fringe, but things can change. Have a plan if heavy rain develops. For everyone, this is weather that deserves your attention. It's not the end of the world, but it's not nothing either. Many of you have lived through major cyclones. Cyclone Larry in 2006. Yasi in 2011. You know what these systems can do? Launa doesn't look like it'll reach Yasi S intensity. That was a Category 5 monster, but even a Category 2 or 3 system can cause serious damage if it hits populated areas. The difference between this and just another tropical low is the rapid intensification. 24 hours can change everything with these systems. That's why you don't wait. You prepare early. I want to address something I've noticed. There's sometimes a tendency to either panic or dismiss these warnings. Neither approach helps. Panic leads to poor decisions. Dismissiveness leads to being unprepared. The right approach is calm preparation based on good information. You're getting good information from the Bureau. They've got decades of experience forecasting tropical cyclones. The technology improved massively. Satellite coverage, computer models, observational data, track forecasts are better than they've ever been. But there are still limits. Small-scale features can be predicted days in advance. That's why the forecast cone exists. It is not that meteorologists can make up their minds. It is that the atmosphere has inherent uncertainty at this time scale. What you can control is your preparation. What you can control is the weather. Focus on what you can control. I'll be monitoring this situation closely and providing updates as new information comes in. The Bureau will have the most up-to-date warnings and forecasts. That is your primary source. A few final thoughts. The monsoon season across northern Australia typically runs from November through April. We rewrite in the peak of it now. This one to be the last tropical system we track this season. It's worth having your cyclone plan ready for the whole season, not just for this one event. For those in the tropics who don't experience cyclones often, understand that local knowledge matters. Listen to long-time residents. They've seen how water flows in heavy rain, where flooding occurs, how the wind behaves around buildings. That knowledge complements the official forecasts. And for those in southern areas wondering if you should care about tropical weather up north, remember that these systems affect the whole country. They shift weather patterns. They bring rainfall to areas that need it. They influence temperatures. Australia's a big country, but the weather systems connect everything. Stay safe, stay informed, and make smart decisions. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. Follow emergency service updates for your area. Look after your mates, especially those who might need help with preparations. That is the situation as it stands. Cyclone Launa developing rapidly off the Queensland coast. A second tropical low forming in the Coral Sea. Widespread impacts likely across the eastern states over the next week. The details will become clearer over the next 24 to 48 hours. Until then, prepare for the worst, hope for the